Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Rookie Card Collector 123 video. In today's episode, we're going to continue our look at the Negro and Winter League baseball cards that were issued for the stars of the 19th century all the way through integration in the early 1950s. I'm covering these in alphabetical order. So today we're going to start with the Bees. Chet Brewer is going to be the first player we're going to look at. Again, I'm going to provide a little background on each player before I show the cards that they have. The bio information I do not have committed to memory, so I'm going to be reading this information from a Negro League biographical encyclopedia that I have. So like I said, the first player we're going to look at is Chet Brewer. Chet Brewer was a Negro League pitcher. He played in the Negro Leagues from 1925 to 1948, so a very extensive career. His early days were spent primarily with the Kansas City Monarchs from 1925 to 35, and then from 37 and 40 to 41. He also had a few one-year stints with various other clubs, which I'm not going to mention all of them. His late years in the Negro Leagues ran with the Cleveland Buckeyes, 1942 to 43 and 46 to 48. So Chet Brewer put in about 23 years in the U.S. Negro Leagues, and like many of the other Negro League players, also spent a lot of time in playing overseas in the winter in Latin America. 1926, Brewer played with the Kansas City Monarchs. He teamed with Bullet Joe Rogan to pitch the Monarchs to the first half of the Negro National League Championship. Brewer was credited with 20 victories that season against all competition, so not just Negro League teams, but also some of the barnstorming games that they would have participated in against local town and semi-pro and amateur teams. 1930, still playing with the Monarchs under the portable light system and against the Homestead Grays. Brewer locked up with an aging Smokey Joe Williams. This was a very famous pitching duel in Negro League baseball history. They pitched 12 innings each. Brewer struck out 19 batters, including 10 straight batters at one point during the game. Smokey Joe Williams, who was in the 40-year-old range at that point, struck out 27 Kansas City Monarchs over 12 innings in that same game. Gave up only one hit, and Williams won the game along with the Homestead Grays 1-0. So Brewer took part in that very famous pitching duel, one of the most famous Negro League history. Another claim to fame for Chet Brewer was he was the first Black American to play in Mexico. He would finish with a 18-3 record and a 1.82 ERA for Tampico in 1938, and followed that up the next season with a 16-6 record and a 2.50 ERA, also Mexico. So Chet Brewer is quite the accomplished pitcher. Unlike some of the other Negro League players at the time, he was not too much of a two-way player. He pretty much just stuck to the pitching responsibilities, and primarily for the Kansas City Monarchs, who dominated the early years of the first official Negro League, the Negro National League. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the first Chet Brewer cards here. We've got two cards for Brewer. Unfortunately, one of the cards I do not have an image to show. So we're going to see the first card for Brewer. This is a 1949 to 50 Toleteros. So Toleteros was a tobacco company in Puerto Rico. So this would have been issued during his 49 to 50 Winter League season in Puerto Rico. The image is a black and white. It has white borders around the photo as well as on the bottom, where it notates the year, the maker, Tolateros, and then Chet Brewer's name. The back has advertising for Tolateros along with some playing game numbers and notations. Was part of a game where you can play baseball using the back card numbers. So Chet Brewer, 4950 Tolateros would be his what you would call a rookie card. The other Chet Brewer card that was produced was 1951 to 52. Like I said, I do not have an image of that one. That would be in the next spot next to the Tolateros. That was from a set called Dania in Action. So I mentioned in the last episode we looked at a few Dania cards, and they were issued in 51, 52, also in Puerto Rico, the year after the last Tolateros, which was 50 to 51. So 51, 52, Dania had cards issued, and they also had a second series, which was called Dania in Action, where they show action poses of the players. Chet Brewer appears in the Dania in Action set from 51, 52. I was not able to locate an image at the time that I published the book here, which was back around 2014. So we have the Tolateros and that Dania for Chet Brewer. Next player we're going to take a look at is John Britton, Britton. Britton was a third baseman. He played in the Negro Leagues from 1940 to 1950. So basically the entire decade of the 40s. Primarily with the Birmingham Black Barons, which was a top ball club of the Negro American League during those days. And at the very beginning of his career, he spent a couple of seasons with the Ethiopian Clowns, which would later on become the Indianapolis Clowns. And he also spent his final 1950 Negro League season with the Indianapolis Clowns as well. Like I said, Britton was a third baseman. First full season in Negro League baseball was 44. He stepped into the third slot in the batting order, and now this is for Birmingham again, the Black Barons. And he batted 324, 333, 262, 336, 289, and 242 for the next 6 seasons with Birmingham. He also toured with Satchel Paige's traveling all-star team during one winter, which I believe was 46 or 46, 47. And he played winter ball in Mexico in 1945 and Puerto Rico in 1947. So that's a little bit of a background on John Britton. Britton has two cards we're going to look at. They actually both share the same image. So the first one we're going to look at is a 1948 to 49 Tolateros. It's the 1948-49 Tolateros. Again, Puerto Rican Winter League. 48-49 was the first year that they issued cards for the Tolateros tobacco brand. This one has Britton. You'll notice this one has no borders around the edges, so the photo goes all the way out to the edge of the card. And just the player name is printed in a white border down at the bottom. Then Britton appears again in the 4950 Tolateros set over here. It's the exact same image again. The 4950 does have borders all the way around, and Britton's name on the bottom white border printed again. Both of these have the Tolateros advertising with the playing game information on the back as well. Most of these were pasted into albums, and oftentimes the back has significant paper loss. Sometimes you can't even read any of the printing on the back because of the album removal to take these out. So those are the two John Britton cards we have to look at. Next player we're going to look at today is Barney Brown. Barney Brown was a pitcher and also outfielder. Most noted for his pitching, but also was a pretty decent hitter and defensive player as well. Barney played from 1931 to 1949, so almost two full decades in the U.S. Negro Leagues. Began with the Cuban Stars West in 1931 and 32. Would play later with the New York Black Yankees from 36 to 39, and with the Philadelphia Stars from 37, and then again from 42 to 49 until the end of his Negro League career. He also had military service in 1943. So Brown pitched in 5 East-West All-Star games during the course of 4 years. One season they had 2 All-Star games for the Negro Leagues. He played winters in Latin America. He led the Puerto Rican League in victories twice, 1941-42 and 46-47. The second year, 46-47, he won 16 games and had an ERA of 1.24 in Puerto Rico. He was the best pitcher in Mexico, 1941, with a record of 19-4. And finished the season for Guayama in the Puerto Rican Winter League that year as well. His lifetime Mexican totals, where he spent the majority of his winter ball, was 84 and 53, with a 3.58 ERA. And as a batter in Mexico over those seasons, he batted 302. So, like I said, very good two-way player, Barney Brown. And we're going to look at one card for Barney Brown. Okay, his one card is going to be right in the center of the page there. So it's going to be a 1951 to 52 Dania. That's the Puerto Rican Winter League, the year after the Toleteros issues finished. This one's actually a color photo. You can't see it too well on the screen here. But these were printed in color, as was the last Toleteros issue, which was the 50-51. The earlier ones were black and white when we saw the Britons and the Chet Brewer. So 51, 52 Dania, these are scarcer than the Toleteros cards from the previous 3 years. And Barney Brown there, borders around the edges, bottom border has Barney Brown printed on it, and a nice color image. And these are super rare. Okay, next one we're going to look at is another pitcher, Dave Brown. Dave Brown had some interesting scenarios going on throughout his career. He had some legal issues, some personality troubles, had some run-ins with the law, and would die at a very early age under mysterious circumstances. So a brief look at Dave Brown. He was a pitcher, left-handed pitcher, one of the top early Negro League pitchers from the 20s. His Negro League career spanned 1918 to 1925, so it was relatively brief. And it was brief because of his personal troubles that I just spoke about. He played for the Chicago American Giants, which was Rube Foster's ball club, the very first Negro National League season in 1920. He actually was with the team from 1918 to 1922, so spent his first 5 years in Negro League baseball with the Chicago American Giants. He was the ace of Rube Foster's pitching staff, even given all his problems and personality issues. After the Giants, he would move on to the New York Lincoln Giants and play there from 23 to 25. The Lincoln Giants were another top ball club in Negro League baseball during the early days. The early Chicago American Giants club, he pitched in 1920 to 22 with records of 10-2, 11-3, and 8-3. for a composite 784 winning percentage. And he was the primary starting pitcher for the club that won the first three Negro National League pennants, 1920 to 1922. In 1921, he's credited with three victories in a playoff series against the Baccarat Giants. Um, Later in his career, we're going to get into his personal issues a little bit. 1925, after killing a man in a barroom fight that year, apparently in an argument involving cocaine, he dropped out of sight to avoid arrest on a murder charge. Two of his teammates were present at the time of the murder, but were not involved. They were not accomplices or anything. Oliver Marcel and Frank Wickware. So basically, he disappeared after that, and to avoid arrest, the FBI searched for him for years. It's reported he traveled throughout the Midwest, playing for semi-pro teams under the alias Lefty Wilson. Now, again, his real name was Dave Brown. Sometimes he toured with Gilkerson's Union Giants, as he did in 26 and 27. And he was also with a white team in Bertha, Minnesota. He was also reported to have pitched with teams in Sioux City, Iowa in 1929 and Little Falls, Minnesota in 1930. Shortly after that, unverified reports persist that he died in Denver, Colorado under mysterious circumstances. So a very, very unique story, very sad story for a pitcher who was probably well on his way to a Hall of Fame career, and just couldn't stay on the right side of the law, I guess. Dave Brown. We've got Dave Brown had two cards issued, and I've got one of them to show you. The other one I don't have an image of. So the first one that I don't have the image of is a 1923 to 24 Beacon. These were produced in Cuba, so he played winter ball in Cuba during the 23-24 season. And these were, Beacon was a cigar tobacco company. So these were produced with bio info for the player on the back, along with the Beacon advertising. The player's name would be on the bottom, front, and in the white bar, white border underneath the image. These were real photographs. So quite high quality card production for the time, and considering that it was produced in Cuba. These are super rare. Populations on these beacons are typically in the 5 range, a little more, a little less. Very hard to come by. And again, a lot of times these are also pasted in albums. So a lot of times if they are found, they're in very rough condition and a lot of paper loss on the back. The other Dave Brown that we do have an image for is from another 23-24 Cuban Winter League set. This is the Tomas Gutierrez series. These were put out by a company called Diaz Cigarettes in Cuba. This picture's brown. They had a tan or brownish tint to the images on these, as opposed to the Beacons, which were black and white. These are printed images, so it's not a real photograph. It's a commercially printed picture of the player. So the only one I have an actual image of the card for, and it's not coming in the greatest on screen here, but 23-24 Tomas Gutierrez. These are about equal rarity to the Beacons. There's probably about 5 of these out there, somewhere around there. So again, Dave Brown, real interesting in Negro League history. Interesting ball player. Okay, the next player we're going to take a look at is Larry Brown. Larry Brown was primarily a catcher. Later on, would also have a managerial career after his playing days were over. So Brown's Negro League career extended from 1919 all the way through 1949, including his managerial days. He began, his early days were with the Indianapolis ABCs from 1921 to 23. Memphis Red Sox, he spent the most time with them from 23 to 25, then 27 to 29, 1931, and then 38 to 48, basically the end of his Negro League career. And he also, in between, had three different seasons with the Chicago American Giants, which was 27, 29, and 40. And a couple of years with the Philadelphia Stars from 36 to 38. So Brown was a durable workman credited with catching 234 games in 1930 for the New York Lincoln Giants, earning his nickname Iron Man. So that 234 games sounds really crazy. They probably played back then a lot of double headers or even triple headers, I've heard. Um, but imagine, imagine a catcher today playing those kinds of numbers of games. Anyway, 1938, he marked the first year of four consecutive All Star appearances, where he went to the East West All Star game from 38 to 41. 33 and 34, he had two earlier All Star appearances as well. So obviously, Brown was one of the top catchers in Negro League Baseball for a number of years. Best known for his defensive skills and his cannon like arm, and also a decent hitter, but primarily a defensive star. So, Brown, I believe we have only one card that was produced of him to show, and it's a super rare one. So Brown is on the middle spot here on the bottom of the page. This is a black and white image of him. It's from a 1927 to 28 Mallorquina set. Mallorquina was candy. These were produced in Cuba also. Just about all the 20s baseball cards picturing Negro Leaguers are all from Cuba. So Mallorquina was, like I said, a candy set. These were very tiny cards. These were similar size to the Bagger chocolate from 1930 that had some of the pictured the U.S. players like Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and all those guys on there, which also originated in Cuba. So these Mallorquinas are tiny square cards. There's a couple of uncut sheets known to exist. The whole set has 100 cards on it, 100 cards in it. The uncut sheet, the way they issued the cards, the first, I believe it's 18 players in the set. That might not be exactly right, but it's pretty close. The first group of players on the sheet are all the professional Cuban baseball players like Larry Brown. The remaining were all amateur Cuban players, making up the other 80 plus cards in the set. The population on these is typically one or two, even lower than the 20 other 20s cards like the Beacons and the Tomas Gutierrez that we talked about. So super rare, only known card for Larry Brown, all-star Negro League catcher from the 20s and 30s and 40s. And the last player we're going to look at today is going to be the only Hall of Famer that we're going to talk about today. So this is going to be Raymond Brown. Raymond Brown was a top pitcher and also outfielder, excellent hitter. Most noted for his pitching abilities, but also was an outstanding two-way player. Played primarily for the Homestead Grays from 1932 to 45, and then played with them again from 47 to 48. Spent a lot of seasons in the Mexican League during the 40s as well as playing in Puerto Rico. So Ray Brown was the Homestead Grays ace during their 9 consecutive Negro League pennants that they won with the Buck Leonard, Josh Gibson ball club. Brown was the third Hall of Fame member that played for all those teams that won the championships from the mid 30s all the way through the mid 40s. He had a sinker, slider, excellent fastball, and his curveball was his best pitch. During his 19-year career, he pitched in two East-West All-Star games, 1935 and 1940. He pitched in seven World Series, Negro League World Series games between 42 and 45, earning a 3-2 World Series record. In addition to his pitching, he was also a good hitter from both sides of the plate, so he was a switch hitter and often played the outfield when not pitching. He was also a favorite in Cuba, where he won more games in winter leagues there than any other Black American pitcher. So no other Negro League pitcher won more games than Brown in Cuba over the years. He had a record of 46-20 for his professional seasons. And while in Cuba, on the outfield batting side, he batted .266 for his career in Cuban baseball. So Brown, like I said, is in the Hall of Fame. He was elected in 2006 when the large group of Negro League players all got selected that same year. I believe there was 18 of them or 20 of them, something like that. So Brown has a number of cards, more than any of the other individuals we looked at today. So we're going to take a look at those now. It looks like we got 4 cards here. So his rookie card, his first card would be in the bottom corner here. This is the 1945 to 46 Caramelo Deportivo. So these were black and white images. These are candy from a candy caramel company. This was from the Cuban Winter League of 45-46. So it's a black and white image. The card number is in a baseball in the bottom corner. The back has the Caramello advertising along with a bio of the player. Again, these were issued with an album. Most of these were stuck in the albums when they're removed. Paper loss and back damage is very often an issue. Almost always found in low-grade condition. Something like this, if you have a 2, anything 2 or above in a grade is considered high grade for these. Almost everything is either authentic or 1 or 1.5. So Brown's first card from Cuba, 45-46 Caramelo Deportivo. Next Raymond Brown card we have, again, we're going back to that 51-52 Dania Puerto Rican Winter League issue. These again are in color. So that's Brown with a full-length body pose just about. It's got his name in the bottom border. These were, like I said, from Puerto Rico. Super rare cards as well. The Caramello Deportivos are not as scarce as many of the other cards that we've been looking at. Populations on a lot of those are somewhere maybe in the 20s, 30s, something like that, especially the bigger name players that people would have held on to. But this one, Dania, the populations on these are probably more in the 5 range again. And again, Brown here, pictured in a full-length pose in color. The next one we have for Brown, it's the 51-52 Dania in action. Again, Puerto Rican Winter League issue. Issued in conjunction with the regular Dania set, but this was the second series. This one pictures Brown on there as well, along with several other individuals in some sort of an action pose gathering. The Dania actions are just as scarce as the first regular series. So very hard to find these as well. And the last one I have for Brown is in the corner there. It's a very close-up portrait, face portrait. This is a 53-54 Venezuelan Winter League card of Brown. Believe it or not, these are more rare than probably any of the others we talked about, except for maybe the Mallorquinas, the small, tiny ones. These are, I've only seen one set of these, which was pasted in an album. It was not a complete set, but it had most of the cards. That one also had the Luis Aparicio rookie card. So Brown is in his 53-54 Venezuelan I have an image of it, which means there's at least one, obviously, that's known to exist. I've never seen one of these in person. So super tough card to find. Might be a one of one. So that's going to wrap up today's episode and exploring Negro League baseball cards that were issued during the Negro League playing days. Almost everything we've seen is super rare. That's going to be the theme throughout these Negro League player issues. Of course, nothing was ever printed in the U.S., so everything is from Latin American countries like Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Mexico. So hope you got some good information out of this. Hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.